Before we begin going through the state that will eventually be known as the Duchy of Liao, let's first give a quick look at the man that would start a grand dynasty that lasts until today. You should never seek to hold any one thing, any one person, any one system, any one ideal above all others. But when you hold that single thing, that single person, that single government, that single value above all else, that thing, that individual, that order, that principle will come to control you, and you will have forfeited your basic humanity. Seek, therefore, to free yourself from unnecessary entanglements, and thereafter seek to free your neighbor, whether he would be free or not. Elias Jung Liao was born in 2041 in the Free State of Hong Kong to an English politician father and a Nepalese mother. Following in his father's footsteps, he studied political theory and later global economics. After completing his studies, he became involved in Hong Kong politics. Liao was a controversial figure among his peers. To some, he was a genius, a visionary, while to others, he was seen as a bit crazy, perhaps even an extremist. Regardless, he became a Hong Kong assemblyman in 2176 and 2 years later, the third president of the Free State. His presidency would suddenly get cut short, however, when the Chinese Republic invaded Hong Kong. Now, I'm not entirely sure which China we're talking about here. Like, invading Hong Kong sounds like a PRC thing, but during a stream, I was told that the Republic in China, Taiwan, is the China in the Battletech timeline because the PRC or communists in general fell sometime in the past. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, Hong Kong would be invaded and Elias, with his family, would flee to Nepal. Now here his story diverges. The more widely accepted history, as purported by Comstar, is that after 2 years of exile, Elias returned to the world stage as the leader of the New World's Disciples, a fanatic group intending to bring down the Alliance so humanity could return to a simpler and more healthier time. Over the next 6 years, the Disciples were behind approximately 175 assassinations, targeting individuals ranging from heads of states to lowly technicians. His most notorious action was the bombing of Beijing, where fusion bombs destroyed at least 3 city blocks. But the Alliance never claimed responsibility for the bombing, nor was it ever proven to be his doing. The Alliance placed all the blame on him. A combined force of Chinese, European, and Indian units mounted an assault on his supposed fortress in the Himalayan mountains. Elias managed to escape with his 2 sons, Victor and David Paul, but his wife and 2 daughters, aged 9 and 7, were tragically killed. Now, the history purported by modern Capella historians, though, paints Elias in a different light. While in exile, Elias spent his days working, acquiring wealth, and perfecting a new economic theory. But the reason for the attack on him remains unclear, according to these historians. Which one's the truth, you may ask?
Well, of course it's the Capellan one. Why, you trust Comstar? These guys, look at them. They wear white robes. Why would you trust these slimy bastards, huh? What are you, a sheep?
With his remaining followers, Elias managed to sneak onto a jump ship under assumed identities, though their true identities were discovered mid-flight. Ever the charismatic man, Elias talked his way out of trouble, while the crew and the colonists deliberated on what to do. He even managed to gain new followers among the colonists and crew. Later, Elias and his new followers were dropped off on an unmarked planet, while the rest of the colonists continued their journey to their original destination. It was here that Elias began anew. He named the planet after his wife, Cynthiana, and used his experience in governing to immediately start building a new state. Recognizing the early years of space colonization and predicting the high demand for food, Elias steered his nation toward becoming a livestock provider. He used the colony's limited funds to import various livestock, including expensive Eridani horses. This high-risk action paid off massively as Cynthiana became the main livestock provider for many nearby systems. Elias would pass away in 2202 at the age of 61, and his son Victor would succeed him. In his honor, the planet was renamed Liao. Under Victor Liao, the Republic opened up to more formal diplomatic relations rather than just strictly business dealings. Foreseeing dark clouds on the horizon, Victor devised a plan to quickly build up the state. Instead of trading using currency, Victor implemented a barter system. For example, one exchange involved trading livestock for irrigation equipment. Another example was the exchange of land for food. The quiet land was used for immigration purposes, building more settlements and similar needs. However, he was not above selling these lands again, often at exorbitant prices, to acquire more technology, trade opportunities, and most importantly, weapons. At the appointed time, Governor Liao kept the Terran ambassador cooling his heels for over an hour. But at last the ambassador was admitted. Both men were obviously in a dark humor. Seeing the crowd of armed guards drawn up within the audience chamber, the ambassador demanded of Liao whether these were members of the planetary levies he had come for, or present solely as a personal insult to himself. To these Victor answered not a word and continued his methodical polishing of his katana, as if the ambassador had spoken not a word. This deliberate snub infuriated the ambassador, as it was intended to. Repeating his inquiry once, twice, and yet a third time caused only continued silence, and the governor refused to acknowledge the ambassador's presence. All the while, the ambassador advanced closer and closer to the dais on which the governor reclined. The rest of us waited, knowing something was about to go down. When the ambassador at last was reduced to shrill shrieks of protest barely a foot from the governor's face, Victor Liao made as if to notice the red and gold-clad Terran for the first time. I was in the best seat. I was in the best position to notice what happened next. The governor shook his head, almost imperceptibly, as if to answer negatively to the Terran's repeated outburst. Next, I saw the governor smile, and that simple act must have been enough to undermine the ambassador's already shaken composure. In any case, it was the last thing the Terran ever saw. As the ambassador moved to draw his dagger, I saw the governor's right hand, holding his katana blade, twitch ever so slightly. The ambassador's head parted from his shoulders scant seconds after. We made it a point to have the ambassador pickled and sent home by first-class carrier. After all, Father always said you should remember to pay your debts with interest. Around 2236, a number of colonies declared independence from the Terran Alliance, driven by neglect spanning over half a century. In response, the Terran Alliance sent troops to bring these colonies to heel. While the troops were numerous and well-equipped, they were green and overconfident. The rebels, though smaller and ill-equipped, had lived hardy lives on neglected backwater walls and possessed the home field advantage. Accustomed to harsh conditions similar to those of battlefields, the rebels decisively slaughtered the Terran troops. To quickly bring in reinforcements, the Terran Alliance called for levies from nearby systems. Some answered the call, but most refused, stating that it was against the Constitution. Liao was one of these worlds. When confronted by a Terran ambassador about sending reinforcements, Victor Liao, in an act of defiance, beheaded the ambassador. Unable to sustain the war, the Terran Alliance admitted defeat and left the colonies on their own. The governing expansionist party was swiftly ousted from power. On Liao, citizens were nervous, anticipating retaliation from the Alliance for Victor's actions, but nothing came to pass. I can honestly say that I've been scared twice in my life. First time was while I was being born. Second occasion was my first and only meeting with Victor Liao. I had heard about the fine stallions Liao was racing at the time. I was curious to see what type of metal this Victor fellow was made of. Very first sight I had of him told me he was twitchy. Like, picture yourself an Oriental type, about 5'5", sporting a green beret and khaki tops, and a green plate kilt to boot. On one hip, he had a long barrel slug thrower, homegrown variety, I suspect, and on the other, a wicked-looking Eastern blade. Pig stickers, the locals call them, though I never did figure out why. Sure, I'd hear stories about Papa Liao's son. The sight of this youngster all decked out brought some of them back right quick like, but I still believe in luck back then. My prize mare was a real sprinter. So anyway, we get ourselves properly introduced and all, and I start haggling over the size of the bet we were having. I kept throwing out figures, and old Liao, he kept on like he didn't hear me. Finally, he says he's heard I own a lot of territory backed up in the north and south of Genoa. Sure, I says. Practically the whole northern hemisphere. That will do nicely. Liao says quiet like. But what the heck am I? Yeah? Well, and what if my horse just happens to win? Why, Mr. Montmorency, then you will be allowed to leave here in one piece. That's when I saw Victor Liao smile for the first time. That's when I got scared. Two years after the war, the Liberal Party took control of the government in the Terran Alliance. The party implemented the historic Demarcation Declaration, which immediately granted independence to systems beyond a 30 light-year radius from Terra. This decision wasn't entirely supported on a bipartisan basis. Debates about undoing the declaration continued from 2242 until 2312. People across Terra saw this as a new beginning, with many choosing to leave the Alliance, marking the beginning of the Second Exodus. New planets were colonized, and existing ones saw a sudden influx of immigrants. This led to the rise of multiple new governments, though not all of them survive, as many would fall in the future. News of the declaration did not reach Liao until at least a week later. By then, Victor had already passed. The Republic was now led by his daughter, Irena Liao. One of her first actions as president was to proclaim the Republic as a sovereign state. She instituted multiple reforms to transform this agricultural planet into a highly efficient feudal dynasty. Examples of her reforms included the creation of a new governing charter, which gave her the power to choose her own successor. Other reforms were social, such as the mandate that allowed citizens to determine their own marriage customs enforced within the lines of extended family groups. Now, if you did not understand what the hell I just said just now, neither do I. So, I consulted ChatGPT to give us an example. Yes, I know ChatGPT isn't the most reliable thing, but who else am I supposed to ask this? But anyway, an example by ChatGPT regarding this marriage mandate. Imagine a community where traditionally weddings are arranged by the parents, and the ceremonies follow a strict set of rituals. Under the new rule, a young couple wants to have a more modern wedding, where they choose their own partner and have a simpler ceremony. They discuss their plans with their extended family, including grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. The family agrees to support the decision and helps them organize the wedding according to the couple's wishes. They still follow some traditional aspects but incorporate new customs that the couple prefers. The extended family ensures that everyone respects the couple's choices and participates in the wedding, blending old and new traditions. This way, the couple gets to have the wedding they want while still involving and gaining approval from their broader family group. Now, this explanation may not be correct. I'm not entirely sure, but I think I understand. I think. But anyway, these reforms were mainly done to attract Exodus immigrants to the Republic by creating a favorable and relaxed atmosphere within Laos society. They also set the stage for additional provisions that empowered family units, especially her own. In the face of the new state being left on their own devices, Irena devised a plan to quickly build up her republic. She began marrying men from powerful families on a monthly basis, gaining significant assets after each divorce. These include money, land, equipment, and even manpower. Some of her ex-husbands would still give her anniversary gifts, likely in a bid to win her heart back. However, all of this was strictly for political gain. Irena then put everything she acquired under the control of the state to further development of the new republic. Here would be where Lao history would end for now. So let us turn towards another state that had similar beginnings, the Capellan Holdfast. The Capellan Holdfast was founded 5 years after Lao was established. Its founder, Yerden Aris, had a similar beginning to that of Elias Lao, both being exiled politicians. Yerden was born to Nikos Aris, a Greek industrialist who owned uranium mining operations. This made the Aris family extremely wealthy. However, the Terran Alliance later decided to internationalize the mines and confiscate them from him. Although Nikos still had his previously saved wealth, he eventually took his own life over this decision. This bred a deep hatred for the alliance within Yerden. Yerden grew up studying classical philosophy, particularly fascinated by and dedicated to the works of Plato, especially the Republic. When he entered the world of politics, he joined the New Philistines Party, an opposition party in parliament. Unlike Lao, who allegedly wanted to change the world from outside recognized politics, Yerden sought to make changes from within. Using his wealth, he bankrolled fellow opposition members and legally challenged the ruling government on various projects, often successfully. This, of course, earned him the ire of the ruling parties. Eventually, they falsified charges against Yurden, accusing him of supporting a terrorist organization operating in the Middle East. Though he vehemently denied the accusations, the court sided with the ruling party and officially charged him. Yurden was arrested, his possessions confiscated, and he was about to be sent to a penal colony in Antarctica. However, Yurden exploited a loophole in alliance law, which stated that any charges would be dropped if the accused signed up as a colonist bound for a new world. After boarding a jump ship and traveling to deep space, Yurden and a number of his followers hijacked the ship at gunpoint, disappearing into the unknown. The local magistrate was a particularly imaginative fellow for a backwater planet. At his direction, we took half the newcomers and adjourned the proceedings until we located the nearest fire ant colony. Once we had the assassinates each carried out on a hill of its own, Judge Kingston informed our visitors that we appreciated that kind offer of submission. But insomuch as we were already a member of a generous state, our answer was limited to this decidedly generous invitation. To while away the time waiting for DM Iris to arrive, Judge Kingston told our guests it was their right about now to know, and the answer began to stir, all about how we came to this little world and how much we enjoyed our own brand of individual autonomy. As our visitors began shifting uneasily in their garments, the judge gave them an impromptu civics lesson, showing them our proud flag, 3 gold coins on a red field, the motto, no regrets, no surrender, on reverse. About the time the ants had decided to do some full-scale urban construction about where our guests happened to be located, DM Aris arrived. After Judge Kingston apprised the DM of the situation, taking his time and pausing for several agonizingly interminable and by no ungracious scream from the leader of the gathered crashlanders, DM Aris confirmed the judge's handling of the situation and asked how his honor wished to handle the matter in question. The judge thought for a moment, and then announced that while it was impossible for us to accept the Sarn's offer of social assimilation, we might wish to return the favor at some later date. At the very least, we might start by offering to make our visitors honorary Capellan citizens. The DM agreed that it was too much to return for such a handsome gift. The visitors might wish to make a small gifting of their own, say in the form of their scout ship. To this, everyone agreed, and the DM departed. It should be noted that the Sarns were anxious, one might say bursting their bonds of anticipation at the decision of the court. And so it was that our first visitors from Sarna saw the light and became Capellan citizens one day. As I do recall, however, Judge Kingston spent all afternoon teaching them to recite the Capellan Pledge of Allegiance before he would grant them their official citizenship papers. Yurden would not be seen for another 3 years, until Sarna's scout ship accidentally stumbled upon the hidden colony. The ship immediately laid claim to the planet and demanded that its citizens accept and assimilate with the supremacy. The scout ship was seized, not exactly sure how, and its crew was brought into a hearing. After deliberation, the judge decided to set them free, granting them honorary citizenship in exchange for their ship. This marked the official contact between the Capellan Holdfast and the Sarna supremacy. While there were calls to escalate the situation from some parties on both sides, cooler heads prevailed, leading to the establishment of formal relationships and de-escalating the situation. For now. Before revealing themselves to a wider space, Yurden decided to reform the Holdfast. Already fascinated by and well versed in the works of Plato, Yurden drew upon classical Athenian democracy and implemented a similar system for the Capellan government. This was to ensure the planet's ability to govern and protect itself against foreign powers like the supremacy. Secretly, though, it was also the first step in Yurden's plan to transform his nation into a powerful entity capable of holding dominion over others. With the Holdfast now turned to a republic, Yurden then opened up the planet to wider space. One of the decisions Yurden made to empower the new republic was to turn it into an information broker. One of his initial actions was to use the planet's limited copper deposits to build the library of the Capellan Republic. This library was envisioned as a haven for free-thinking men and women from anywhere to pursue scholastic and artistic pursuits without any inhibitions. Since free thought was not entirely welcome in most nations, the construction of this library attracted droves of bright minds to the Republic. causing significant brain drains in many places. With the library in place and an influx of bright minds arriving, Capella soon became the most influential system in the region, if not the entirety of human space. All the information and data gathered there were used as valuable trading commodities. Its importance and influence grew further after the Demarcation Declaration, as Terra became more isolationist. Since the Republic lacked a proper defense force, Yurden negotiated a defense pact with nearby neighbors and trade partners to protect Capella from potential attacks, particularly from Sarna supremacy. This led to the formation of the Capellan Co-Prosperity Sphere, providing Yurden the necessary time to build up a military of his own. This decision was timely, as Sarna soon attacked, feeling threatened by the Republic's growing influence. Winning the war against the supremacy bolstered the Republic's political and patriotic spirits. This increase in Capellan pride, combined with the effective working classical democratic system, led to even more artistic, intellectual, and military developments and achievements. The Capellan Republic's influence continued to grow as more worlds joined the Co-Prosperity Sphere. By the late 24th century, the Republic had earned the moniker Teacher of Worlds, reflecting its role as a beacon of knowledge and progress throughout human space. Yurden's son, Nicopolo, took over leadership in the 2270s. He held a plebiscite involving the entire Capellan population, which unilaterally decided to form the Capellan hegemony. The new hegemony immediately granted fellowship status to nearby systems and original Co-Prosperity members, officially confirming the long-held belief that the former Republic held dominion over these states. Upon hearing this, Sarna initiated an economic boycott of the hegemony. The boycott lasted for 12 years, ultimately forced to end as it negatively impacted Sarna's economy. Additionally, there were minor conflicts with St. Ives Mercantile League and the Ingersoll Concordium over trade-related issues. The conflict with St. Ives concluded with hegemony gaining control of key market planets, while the conflict with Ingersoll ended with its complete annexation by the hegemony. This era of hegemony history became known as the Capellan Renaissance. Compared to most other states in known space, the hegemony was among the most stable. Hundreds of public and specialized schools were built across hegemony space, leading to a significant decline in illiteracy for the first time in a century. In 2271, the Capellan Ballet Interstellar was formed, bringing together musical, theatrical, and other creatives. This institution preserved classical arts while producing hundreds of avant-garde works. State sponsorships of the arts resulted in the creation of highly sought-after pieces, whose beauty and significance endured long after the hegemony ended. In those days, being a Capellan meant something. No matter how far you traveled or in what direction, even to the very gates of Terra itself, the Capellan mystique, the mystery and power of the Capella went with you. Just saying, I am a Capellan, was enough in most places to guarantee you a free sun of drinks and friendly companionship for the night on a dozen different worlds. Oft times or not, free bed and board would be thrown in for good measure. And if by chance you wore the gold triangle of the Capellan armed service on your shoulder, well then, laddiebuck, you had the world. Literally, the entire world, at your beck and snap. Like kings we were those days. Like kings. Not like today, mind you. It was not all sunshine and happiness though. As is the fate of many successful civilizations, cracks inevitably began to form. While democracy was practiced with representatives from all states, it became evident that Capella held undisputed power in the Senate. Over time, Capella gradually imposed its policies on fellowship states, consolidating even more control. This was facilitated by the Demas, an agency initially responsible for the coordination of census and administrative matters among member states, which eventually transformed into a secret police force protecting and enforcing hegemony policies. Hegemony democracy gradually shifted to favor the wealthy and powerful over the capable. With the strong economy, fewer individuals were motivated to join politics, instead pursuing materialistic and non-civic interests. This left a political vacuum that allowed those in power to further entrench themselves by favoring the wealthy. In just 4 short decades, the once vibrant democratic state had devolved into a greedy plutocracy. And those were the 4 main pre-Confederation states. But they were not the only ones. There's at least 2 more that held a big chunk of Capellan space, but just do not have any lore at all. The first one being the St. Ives Mercantile League. St. Ives was originally settled by refugees from Hong Kong escaping the Chinese invasion. They spent 50 years as an individual state before forming the League with nearby systems. It's kind of weird that St. Ives don't have a lot, since later on in the timeline they became a pretty huge focal point, I guess. Huge point of contention, I guess, with the whole Kai Outlet saga. The other one is the Sion Supremacy, and these guys don't even get anything. They just exist. And they also have pretty big borders too, so that's kind of weird. Again, it's very weird because Sion is the capital. It became the capital, so I mean, it is an opportunity for Battletech to expand on it later on, but I don't know if they ever will do that because, like, the Ilkhan era, like, I'm pretty damn sure they are like full steam ahead on that. So I highly doubt they will go back to fill lore for a time of for a time where there weren't even mechs, and most people who play Battletech, follow Battletech, they want the max, yo. So I don't know if they will ever like expand on Sion, the Sion Supremacy, or the St. Ives Mercantile League, which is unfortunate. But regardless of their individual histories, the ultimate fate of all Capellan nations converged when they joined the later formed commonality, placing their destinies in the hands of Seleucus.